Are you eligible to travel to Western Australia? Today's video update will discuss the travel updates to Western Australia. During the last months of 2021, Australian states have gradually started to open borders and raise quarantine and testing necessities for those who wish to travel interstate. While all domestic boundaries were planned to be open in February, the Premier of Western Australia, McGowan, is determined to keep Western Australia closed tight as Australia deals with Omicron. The Premier is hesitant to unlock borders until the Western Australian population has had their third vaccine dose of the coronavirus. While the East Coast is travelling without restrictions, with no incoming flight caps and no quarantine for completely vaccinated visitors, Western Australia had executed a hard border from the 5th of February, including a flight cap of 530 visitors and quarantine prerequisites. Let's have a look at who could travel into Western Australia. The Western Australia border will welcome authorised interstate travellers, and they must stick to quarantine and testing requirements. So who are the permitted travellers? Approved travellers can come to Western Australia under extended exemption criteria, which includes the following: those with immediate legitimate family connections in Western Australia, returning Western Australians with substantial and recent connections, those coming on compassionate grounds such as funerals, palliative care, or terminally unwell visitation, students registered in Western Australia educational institutions, members of the family of an authorised traveller, those travelling in the interests of national and state security, those entering for urgent primary medical care, Commonwealth and state officials, members of Parliament and diplomats, individual needed to attend court matters, judicial officers and staff of the court, tribunals and commissions, employees providing specialist skills not available in WA, such as health and emergency service workers, those who are in special care and extraordinary circumstances specified by the State Emergency Coordinator or Chief Health Officer. Let's have a look at the requirements which need to be fulfilled by authorised regional visitors. Be vaccinated entirely, 3 doses if eligible, or 2 doses if not yet eligible for the third. Show proof of negative rapid antigen test within 24 hours of departure. Have an approved G-to-G pass under the latest exemption criteria. Authorised travellers are needed to take a PCR test or rapid antigen test on day 1. They must then return a negative rapid antigen test on day 7. Family members must also return a negative rapid antigen test on the visitor's day 7 quarantine. The compulsory use of the G2G Now app and in-person checks by Western Australia Police as needed. Self-quarantine for 7 days at suitable premises. The identical quarantine prerequisites apply for family members at self-quarantine premises. Other requirements are mainly for domestic road travel. These include the following: approved domestic visitors to restrict travel to 1,500 kilometres from road borders. This will allow people to travel to suitable quarantine premises in Perth. Entrance to the Kununurra border is only allowed for transport, freight and logistics, and border community citizens. Restricted travel into isolated Aboriginal communities. Let's talk about international travel into Western Australia that is allowed with the following requirements. Commonwealth requirements: to come in the country below the arrival cap is met. Visitors have an authorised G-to-G pass. Travellers must take a PCR or rapid antigen test on day 1. They must return a negative rapid antigen test on day 7. Take 7 days of self-quarantine at suitable premises upon entry if they are vaccinated. 14 days of compulsory hotel quarantine applies to unvaccinated travellers. Be subject to the obligatory usage of the G2G Now app and personal checks by Western Australia Police as needed. Indirect international arrivals: anyone who came on an international flight into a state other than Western Australia is subject to the same quarantine requirements as authorised travellers. Have a look at the effects of the hard border of Western Australia. Those living in Western Australia who don't have family interstate or wish to travel to the other states won't be distressed by the hard border. It's frustrating for families who haven't visited their loved ones since the pandemic started. But what about tourism and business? Mark McGowan has not merely kept the Western Australia border closed, but he has also shut off the regions. As a large state, travel between the areas is essential. Each region needs dissimilar exemptions, and it adds another coating of complications to enter when they are closed. Whether between Western Australia and the rest of the country or within Western Australian areas, sealed borders have significant consequences for businesses required to do business in Western Australia. Businesses fail to proceed, with certain high-profile executives claiming it's become impossible to operate a major business from Western Australia. Many other companies have also faced the backflip on the Western Australia border, with many having to cancel sales trips to the East Coast, resulting in many financial failures. When it comes to the Western Australia tourism industry, the ramifications are dire. Multiple tourism workers have had to give refunds, and many are on the point of closing their businesses altogether. It appeals to the question, how long can Western Australians live without knowing when they will open up again? We have reached the end of today's video. If this video was helpful, like, share and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Thanks for watching.